big news out of the UK overnight. It must energise you, and it should energise us as well.
Well, this is obviously a very welcome development, and Greg Hunt, the Health Minister, has spoken to the Australian CEO of Pfizer. As you know, the British situation is somewhat different to Australia's in that they have had more than 1 million COVID infections, nearly 60,000 deaths, while here in Australia, Pete, there is not one person on a ventilator or in ICU due to COVID. That being said, we've got our own approvals process, which is expected to conclude by the end of January. And then if the vaccine is safe to distribute, then to occur not long after that.
Yeah. So those dates aren't changing as far as you're aware?
Well, Greg Hunt's put out that statement, and he has stuck to those dates for a process to conclude by the end of January, and then hopefully for the vaccine to start to be distributed by March.
OK, let's go on to those numbers from yesterday. No doubt heartening to see that Australia is out of recession. We weren't in it for very long, but we're out of it. But it must have been hard for those hundreds of thousands of Australians who are unemployed at the moment. It must be hard for them to stomach.
Well, life is certainly tough for many Australian families and many Australian businesses, and COVID-19 has been a once-in-a-century pandemic and the greatest economic shock this country and the world has seen since the Great Depression. So we will feel the consequences and the impacts of that for some time to come. But these are an encouraging set of numbers, Pete. The 3.3% increase in the September quarter for GDP, the single largest increase since 1976. It's a reflection of household consumption jumping by 7.9%, and household consumption is nearly 60% of GDP. It's also a reflection of the success on the health front, with our restrictions being eased, people being able to go about their daily lives. So the momentum is certainly building for the economic recovery. And this is just the latest data point in a set of economic numbers that has trended in the right direction. We saw 178,000 jobs being created last month. We saw Australia's AAA credit rating reaffirmed. We saw building approvals up by 3.8%. We saw capital city house prices up by 0.7%. So we are seeing across the board, including consumer and business confidence, all picking up very nicely.
Given that Victoria is still lagging behind, though, is there any plan to extend JobKeeper beyond March or even change it in any way, shape or form?
No, the JobKeeper program is set to end in March, and it has always been our intention that that program is temporary, it's targeted, it's scalable, and it's using existing systems. And it's been an incredibly successful program. We heard only recently from the Reserve Bank, Pete, that the JobKeeper program had helped save at least 700,000 jobs. It's been a glue between employers and employees. And we got the ATO data for the month of October, and it showed that there were 2 million fewer Australians on JobKeeper and 450,000 fewer Australian businesses on JobKeeper in the month of October compared to September. And that is a sign of the economic recovery gaining pace. But I also want to point out that JobKeeper is just one of a number of economic measures that we have outlined to support the Australian economy, particularly in the budget just on October the 6th, a set of business investment incentives, the JobMaker hiring credit, which has now been legislated, the loss carryback measure, and of course the tax cuts for more than 11.5 million Australians, which is already seeing money go into people's pockets. All of those measures combined are designed to support the Australian economy and the Australian people.